Daniel Levy is president of the US Middle East Project. He's a former negotiator with the Israeli government. He's joining us now from London. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. I want to talk to you first of all about the cross-border rocket attacks we've seen between Israel and Hezbollah just in the last 72 hours or so. Israel said that it carried out a preemptive strike on for defensive purposes, which then led to the rocket attacks from Hezbollah. Others have been describing Israel's action as a provocation that was designed to bring Hezbollah into a war and subsequently Iran into a regional conflict. What's your assessment of what's been happening?
So the Israeli position is that it wants to claw back some of the deterrents that it has lost, recalibrate some of the shift in the balance of power in the region, which has gone against Israel. And if it can do that, and it has America there threatening, deploying more assets into the region, if it can do that without a full-blown war in the region, I think that would be the preference, because for Netanyahu, the dangers of a full-blown war are significant, including that there could then be a real push to de-escalate and to have a ceasefire. And Netanyahu wants an open-ended war, especially in Gaza. However, if there is to be a major escalation, then the key, and this has been a goal for Netanyahu for some time, is you pull the Americans in directly. So the kind of extrajudicial killings, those provocations, they don't really change the military or strategic equation. And so I think what you've seen is that on the axis of resistance side, they are not keen to fall into the trap that Israel has set for it and that America is being pulled into, willingly it seems. And I think, therefore, the axis of resistance looks at this and it needs to maintain its own credibility because these provocative assassinations are a challenge to it. But it can do that with these relatively calibrated responses. And it was very interesting that Hezbollah messaged that only military installations will be targeted. I think, therefore, drawing a distinction between itself and what Israel has been doing in Gaza, what Israel has done in the past in Lebanon, is threatening to do in Lebanon again, and further sending the message to the rest of the region that Israel is the ones who are willing to just destroy everything. And that, I think, is what's crucial here, that in asymmetric strategic warfare like this, you really rely on your enemy, the more powerful party, to make its own mistakes. And Israel has been making those mistakes aplenty. Israel has weakened itself. And because of the nature of the Israeli economy, it's not a resistance economy. It's totally plugged in to the global economy. Israel actually has a lot of vulnerabilities that just the threat of war exploits those vulnerabilities. And that's some of what we're seeing.
A lot of speculation now about how Tehran is going to react to this. Obviously, Iran, even just again within the last few hours, has reiterated the fact that it intends to, in some way, retaliate for the death of Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. There has also been speculation that whatever response there is from Iran may not be a single unified concerted effort, that it may actually be the Iranian proxies, again from Yemen, from perhaps in Syria, from Hezbollah as well, acting on their own initiative. Is Israel, do you think, in a position to be able to deal with a conflict on so many different fronts?
That is very high risk for Israel, and there is no consensus, and that's why you do have a division inside Israel, inside its establishment. You have the new elites with whom Netanyahu has aligned himself. And this isn't just about Netanyahu's political survival. This is also ideological. And that elite kind of has this view that one can have an all-out war. And the key thing for them is not so much Iran, but if you can stare down the axis of resistance, then you can create circumstances in which you can permanently further displace and ethnically cleanse the Palestinians. That's what they're interested in. I think the security establishment, and I don't want to depict them as doves, they are not. They are very much responsible for the horrors and the plausible genocide in Gaza. But the security establishment looks at this equation and says, this is not going to end well for us. This is too high risk. We already have a lot of exhaustion in Gaza. We are so dependent today on American weapons. Now, luckily for them, disgracefully in terms of how I think the rest of the world should look at this, the American weapons continue to flow. But the security establishment is not enthusiastic about this. And Iran looks at this possibly and says, well, for a month, Hezbollah ratcheted up the tensions, and this caused all kinds of the Israeli shekel dropped, Israel's credit rating dropped, many flights were cancelled. Now let's just maintain this level of pressure, and at some stage one imagines Iran will respond. There's an element of dilemma there as well, because the US has moved more military assets to the region, and so the US, one has to understand, probably does not want the regional war, but it does want to help its ally Israel reassert its freedom of operation. It is threatening Iran. It doesn't care about the Palestinians. And if anyone genuinely wants a de-escalation in the region, you have to get the Gaza ceasefire. Of course, that's not happening, and the Americans have engaged in a lot of duplicity and dishonesty on that front.
Really appreciate you giving us the benefit of that analysis there. Daniel Levy, thank you very much indeed for being with us.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.